I wasn't sure if I had a video for you for this yet or not, but apparently I didn't, so here is a video for you guys. This is in response to, right now I'm grading your plans and your thesis statements, and I find that I'm repeating myself quite a bit. So before I grade anybody else's, I think I've gotten through about 3 of them, I wanted to make this video for the whole class. Your paper is a claim of policy paper. And as you've been going through, and at this point, you have gone through the claims, the warrant support, you know, all that kind of stuff, this particular lesson. And so, and this is what your paper is. It's a claim of policy. Remember, there's 3 types of claims. The third one that's talked about here in this lesson is the claim of policy. It's the same type of claim that Friedman uses in her article. And I saw that, you know, because I also just very recently graded your discussions about looking at the claims warrant support, you know, for Friedman's article, and most of you got that right, so that was really good. That you know, you recognize it as a claim of policy. Same thing that you guys are doing for your paper, a claim of policy, but not really seeing, not in everybody so far, but I'm not seeing necessarily papers being set up as a claim of policy, and I'm definitely not seeing thesis statements being set up in a way that they are claim of policy thesis statements. So I kind of wanted to go over this in one video instead of, again, like, you know, repeating myself many times. So a claim of policy, as it says here, asserts certain policies or courses of action should be adopted, implemented, or instituted as solutions to problems. And then I give you an example. So this example is an example of a thesis statement of a claim of policy. In order to lower the number of stray cats and dogs in the county, free spaying and neutering needs to be offered by the county. So what I'm saying is I'm identifying the problem, right? By saying, in order to lower the number of stray cats and dogs, what I'm saying is that there's a problem with the number of stray cats and dogs. And I'm saying this is the solution we need. We need free spaying and neutering, right, offered by the county. So that is a thesis statement that's a claim of policy. You know, in Friedman's, what she does is her title is basically her claim of policy, is her thesis statement, right? That, you know, these people who are living donors should be paid for their donations. I mean, that's what she's saying, that we should be paying these people for their living donations. That's a claim of policy thesis statement. This is what we should be doing. It can, if you want, you can lead up to the reason why, as in like what the problem is. You can lead up to that in the beginning of that paragraph, and you can conclude with your thesis statement saying this is what the Peoria County or whatever your community is needs to do. And then that would be your what you're arguing for is that what you're arguing for is this, whatever action, whatever policy you want enacted. That's why it's a claim of policy. So that's for the thesis statement. So like another generic, like just a example would be, because every year I have students talk about obesity, or, you know, just students, like younger people being more healthy. So if you were arguing for, let's say, more activity, more physical activity being done in K through 12, then your claim of policy might be all Peoria County school districts need to enact, and you can also, just for a second, you can name your program something. So let's say you don't have to say need to enact more physical activities or need to have more physical activity during the school day for all students. You could say that, or you could name your program. You know, you could say all Peoria County school districts need to adopt the you know, get up and go program, and then tell us what the program is, you know, which promotes more physical activity on a daily basis for students. And that could be your, you know, that could be your claim of policy. So so that's your claim, right? That your thesis statement is your claim of policy. Then you have to argue it. And this is where I'm also finding some issues with your plans. And so your plan really needs to be set up, even though I know I listed all these different types of things have to be in your paper, like, you know, terms and things and whatever, but those are going to be integrated into your claim of policy in the framework that a claim of policy has to be set up, which is problem solution. So the first half of your paper is the problem, second half of your paper is the solution. And I know I have a video where I talk about all of this, where I'm explaining this particular project. So some people's problem sections are going to be longer because it's going to take more to convince your audience that the problem exists than it will to convince them that, like, to explain the solution and convince them the solution will work. And some people are going to have a shorter problem section because it's going to be easier to convince your audience that the problem exists, and it's going to be harder to convince your audience, well, one, to explain the solution and convince your audience that the solution is going to work. Okay, but those are the two parts, right? Claim of policy claims of policy have two aspects which must be argued. The first one, you must convince the audience that the problem to which you are posing a solution actually exists. This is done through a claim of fact that is supported by verifiable evidence. So for the example that I'm giving here, it's that first I have proved the number of stray cats and dogs in the county is actually a problem. Because remember that this is what I'm saying, this is my thesis statement, my claim of policy. So this isn't the problem. First I have to explain that prove the problem exists. In your problem section, this is what you need to be doing. You need to come right out and say what the problem is. You need to be able to prove that it exists. Give the data, give the statistics, prove that it is a problem in your particular community. Then you need to talk about all the possible negative effects of the problem. So you're going to talk about the possible negative effects on the population that is most directly impacted. So for this one, it might be people who have a lot of stray cats and dogs in their neighborhood. Let's also use the the obesity problem. So the population that's most directly affected by childhood obesity would be the overweight children, right? The children who are obese. So what are all the problems that they are going to encounter as an obese child? Then you're going to move from the population that is most directly affected to the community as a whole. What are all the possible negative impacts, the negative effects of this problem on the community as a whole? And you have to go there because not everybody is going to, some people are going to say, well, it doesn't matter, my neighborhood doesn't have stray cats and dogs, it's not really a problem here. Or they might say, you know what, my kids are not overweight, I'm very careful about making sure that they eat right and they exercise and blah, 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 right? And so maybe people won't care if it's other people's kids or it's other people's neighborhoods. But you need to talk about how it's going to affect the community as a whole. So then it would be, what are the negative effects on the entire community? That's just the problem section. Then you've got the solution section. So that's the second part. So you have to provide a solution that will work and is the best possible solution. So you're going to have to, the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to explain your solution in detail. How will the solution be enacted? What is your plan specifically? What resources is it going to require? How are we going to pay for those resources? How will those resources be acquired? And then prove that it's actually going to work. So then you're going to prove that it's going to fix the problem. And then you can also talk about what are the benefits of this solution to the population that's most directly impacted and then to the community as a whole. That's how you need to be setting up your paper. And going back to the problem section, when you're talking about the problem, you can go into like what factors contribute to the problem, like why are there stray cats and dogs? So not just proving that they exist, that there is a problem, but like what factors? Why do we have this many stray cats and dogs? If you were talking about childhood obesity, not only do you have to prove that there's a high enough rate of childhood obesity, that's a problem, but you can talk about the factors. Why are we having childhood obesity? And then you can talk about the negative impacts, because the why, like why is this problem happening? If you talk about that in the problem section, when you go to the solution section, you're going to be referencing back to that, because the whys, the reasons, right, are the things you're going to also try to fix. You're going to try to stop those reasons or address those reasons or whatever they might be. So before you write your first draft of your paper, you need to be thinking about this, making sure your paper is in problem, solution. That's the framework. Problem and then solution. You should not have it mixed up. There shouldn't be like some of the solution section in the beginning. Don't talk about the benefits. Don't talk about benefits until the end. Don't talk about negative impacts only in the beginning. That shouldn't be in the end. Make sure that these things are very clearly delineated, okay? If you have questions, make sure you get a hold of me.